What's up guys and welcome. You are watching Fazi Fitness. So the official competitors list for this upcoming Italy Pro just got released. And unfortunately there is a bad news. Rubiel Mosquera's name isn't in that list. So that means Neckzaill isn't gonna be doing that show. So for the record, never once did Rubiel himself said that he is doing Italy Pro. This announcement was made on his behalf by his sponsors after the Dubai Pro. And there is that contradiction again that the media constantly points out. So there was this huge controversy after this year's Dubai Pro, whether Rubiel wanted to do that show or not. Because Rubiel was actually sick leading into that show, especially in the peak week. And maybe to avoid this confusion in the future, Rubiel and his sponsors, they need to sit together and have a mutual consensus on these kind of announcements. Because the thing is, he is one of the biggest bodybuilding attraction in the world right now. And the bodybuilding media is going to highlight anything related to him and his competition schedule. Now, obviously the standout of the show is Hunter Labrada. So I have to say this is relatively an easier show for him to qualify. And he is gonna walk all over the competition there. So the biggest surprise in this lineup, that is the 3-time former Olympian, Andrea Presti. Because most of us thought that Presti won't be competing this year at all. So on paper, he is gonna be Hunter's biggest competition. He is gonna be the closest one to Hunter. I mean, he is a 3-time Portugal Pro champion. And he has this great ability to bring an insane level of conditioning and really shredded look every time he steps on stage. So Presti was supposed to compete earlier in the year, and that show was supposed to be Spin Pro against William Bonac, Behrooz and Michael Crizo. But he got sick just 2 weeks prior to that show, which led him to dropping out of the competition and the whole bodybuilding season as well. So Edawrd, that guy we saw at this year's Dubai Pro, where he placed 5th, he is gonna be another guy to watch out for. So he doesn't have the size just yet to be a force in the men's open class, especially against a top Olympian like Hunter. But he has got a great shape and superb symmetry. So if he gets a chance to stand next to Hunter Labrada, especially in that first call out, that is gonna be such a good comparison for him to find out what he needs to work on the most for the upcoming shows for the future. So I believe Hunter is gonna win this show in the same manner Andrew won this year's Texas Pro. Next up is the update of Ruel Brandao. So that is a very impressive strength for 5.5 weeks out of the show. So those are 80 kgs dumbbells that Brandao is throwing around for reps. So how much of a size difference will we see on his physique compared to what we saw at this year's Arnold, especially in Columbus? Because that will determine how high he's gonna place at this year's Miss Olympia. Now he was in a phenomenal condition at this year's Arnold Classic Ohio. He was top 3 in that show behind Hadi Choopan and Samson Dauda. But the size difference between him and Samson, that was still good enough that the judges did not consider him for the 2nd place, even though overall he was in a better condition than Samson. But on the other hand, what we saw from him at this year's Arnold Brazil, that wasn't as impressive as his version in Ohio. So Ruel has the physique, he has the lines, he has the aesthetics, and he can be top 6 in the world. But the thing is, size isn't there just yet. And that time for him to be in the top 6, that hasn't arrived just yet. Because I think we can all agree, he still needs more thickness, especially from the side, as well as from the back, to battle it out with the guys who are potentially gonna be in the top 7. So there has been this silly argument that Ruel Brandao should have done classic physique category instead of the men's open. Maybe his 2017 San Marino version, that could have made the weight cutoff, but in the last few years, he is open all day. I mean, he's gonna have to literally cut off one of his legs to make that classic physique weight cutoff. And I believe his time will definitely come if he continues to put on muscle year after year without losing his classic lines. Keone will be more than just happy to get this compliment from none other than Lee Haney, the legendary 8-time Miss Olympia champion, under his recent update. So Keone has made the weight today, but the scary part is that he is 5 pounds up compared to what he weighed last year at the same time. But even scarier part is that he is not only bigger, but he is more conditioned, he is more detailed, and he is way more muscular than before. So after seeing those deep feathers on his quads, I have to say conditioning won't be an issue for him. And his flow is already so damn incredible, as Keone is so bubbly top to bottom. So how Keone has been able to put on such massive amount of muscle without even the slightest change in his waist, that is just truly unbelievable. Now, if I'm not mistaken, his weight cutoff in Classic, that was in the 170s. And he is going to be stepping on the Olympia stage this time, above 200 pounds, and that too for the very first time. And his proportions, they have not just remained the same, they have actually gotten better over the years. And also him being the defending champion for the very first time, That has allowed him to take things to a whole different level this year. Now, if Keone continues to add on more muscle on his frame, especially at this pace, he will have to compete in the men's open bodybuilding division in the near future. And his coach Patrick Tuor also had that same thought process. Next up is the 5.5 weeks out physique update of Behrooz, training hard and dieting even harder without even knowing that he is gonna get that chance to present this physique on the Olympia stage this year again. So this is the third year where Behrooz has qualified for the Olympia. And the way things are looking right now, he isn't gonna make it there yet another year. And if that is the case, that is gonna be so unfortunate. And I so hope that I'm wrong on this one. Now, it isn't just Milos Sarcev who rates him so high. Chris Cormier saw Behrooz for the very first time at this year's Dubai Pro. And he is so impressed up to a point where he put Behrooz in his Olympia top 6 for this year. So Behrouz's strength, that is his conditioning, especially his consistency with that. The guy trains twice a day, just like Hadi Chupan, and does minimal cardio. But he still gets in a crazy impressive shape. So Milos mentioned that Behrooz is one of the easiest guys to work with, especially when he is starting for a show. So Behrouz's prep, that isn't gonna go in vain, because in case he doesn't get to compete at this year's Miss Olympia, he will surely be doing Romania Pro, which is scheduled just 1 week after this year's Miss Olympia. So Behrooz got the biggest check of his life this year, and that was in Dubai Pro just a few weeks back. And he is definitely gonna do that show again next year. So Milos as a coach, he always hypes up his athletes, but he really believes that Behrooz has what it takes to beat Nick Walker this year. Now, I'm not sure many of us would agree with that. Next up is the current physique update of Quinton Beastwood. So whether this is the starting point of his offseason or the contest prep, he looks to be in a great spot for both. So most of us were really disappointed with how Quinton looked at this year's Neo Pro, because the expectations that this was his first show after 2 years, after taking such a long break just to focus on getting bigger, to grow. So all of us, including Quinton, was hoping that there will be some drastic improvements, especially in that size department. But he showed up looking smaller than Texas Pro 2022, and that is why people totally wrote him off for Toronto Pro. Now, we must admit that Quinton was able to make such a strong comeback in just a few weeks, and he placed second behind Akeem Williams in that show. And that was a very good lineup as well. We had the likes of multiple times Olympian Hassan Mustafa, a guy like John Jewett, who is a master of peaking, plus of course Akeem Williams, who was the winner of that show. So that was a job well done by Quinton. So he is currently 28 years old, so he has the time on his hand. But I must say his physique this year, especially the size that he had at this year's Toronto Pro, that is good enough to qualify for the Olympia, especially if he can nail his conditioning. And maybe he would have qualified had he done Van Pro, which was scheduled just 2 weeks after that. Next up is the physique update of John Jewett, 5.5 weeks out of his first ever Miss Olympia in the men's open bodybuilding. So John has set up very realistic expectations for his placings at this year's big show. We know that some people would say that everyone should enter a bodybuilding show with the mindset of winning it. But the thing is, this isn't any bodybuilding show. This is the best of the best. This is the Olympia we are talking about. And anywhere from 10th to 15th, that is a very realistic approach. So looking at John's conditioning with 40 days to go, he is gonna be absolutely peeled on the stage one more time. So how is John such a perfectionist when it comes to peaking for a show? Knowledge and genetics as well, because every bodybuilder at that level, that is working extremely hard, and no one is actually cheating on their diets. So John is gonna be in the high 220s on the stage this year, which is absolutely insane, because up until last year, he was competing as a 212 athlete. So that is a lot of muscle added to his frame in just 1 year. So hit the thumbs up button if you liked the video, and smash the subscribe button if you wanna come back for more. Thanks for watching.